In a move that has Democrats rattled, a North Carolina Democrat is expected to switch parties, and this could have a profound ramification for the region and the state. It could result in the banning of abortion in the state. Axios Rally says a North Carolina Democratic lawmaker is expected to flip her party affiliation. Multiple Republicans with knowledge of the discussions tell Axios. The move would cement Republicans' toehold in a fast-changing swing state, handing them a veto-proof majority in the middle of the legislative session and a clear runway to enact their agenda, despite opposition from Democratic Governor Roy Cooper. Oh, boy. Well, here's what the crazies are saying. Mark Joseph Stern, this guy is a writer at Slate, so you know he's a cult member. This flip may very well lead to an abortion ban in North Carolina. With Florida on the brink of passing a 6-week ban, that would choke off all access to legal abortion in the South. He goes on to say, folks saying abortion remains legal in South Carolina, that's probably about to end too. Republicans appointed a new conservative justice to the state Supreme Court who is likely to uphold the state's revised ban very soon. Now, I wonder why it is a Democrat would quit the Democratic Party. It seems to happen a whole lot. Here's what they say. Republicans who are currently just one seat short of a supermajority in the legislature have been hoping that State Rep Tricia Cotham, a Democrat from Charlotte, might switch parties at some point in this session. But the prospect began to seem more realistic last week, a Republican House member said. Cotham is expected to announce her decision Wednesday. House Republicans announced a 9 a.m. press conference Tuesday for a major announcement. Why it matters? Republicans have held majorities in both the state House and Senate for more than a decade. But in recent years, the threat of Cooper's veto has kept the party's power in check. A supermajority could free up party leaders to more easily push long-hoped-for legislation, restricting abortion, and all but eliminate their need to compromise with the governor on the budget, changes to election laws, and education reform. This is what conservatives need to consider. This is where we are headed. With Donald Trump's indictment, with the Supreme Court appointment or election, the judge's election in Wisconsin, you are heading towards permanent rule by single parties. And you realize that probably means, I'm going to say it, I know, civil war. Because what happens when you have states that are so at odds with each other, their views are inverted? What happens when North Carolina bans abortion outright and Colorado basically says you can have an abortion whenever you want, even up to the point of birth? The worldview of these two factions will diverge to the point where you will end up with war. I mean, simply put, do you think, let me put it this way, because I get so many conservatives being like, it'll never happen. Do you think the left will be satisfied to leave you alone? Simple question. You already know the answer. The answer is no. They already come to rural areas and try and invade your schools and pass their weird cult ideology. So what happens? Let's just put it this way. Let's say in a scale of 10 to -10, we have ideology. 10 is, for example, a total ban on abortion, and -10 is abortion at any point for any reason up to the point of birth. Do you think Democrats, when viewing what they see as akin to slavery, they're staring at you think they're going to be like, well, hey, look, that's North Carolina. We're going to mind our own business over. No, they already travel across the country and world for their cult. So they will come to your state. They will infiltrate, destroy, and they will attempt to infiltrate, destroy, and then rebuild. That's what they're doing right now. They're doing it in West Virginia. It's funny to me that people are like, no, my kid goes to a good school. Oh, spare me, dude. Because I see it in MAGA country. Parents don't pay attention, and the cult is tenacious, and they're working very hard. Education reform, they say. Cotham didn't respond to Axios' request for comment, so it's not clear what's driving her consideration to switch. I don't know. Maybe it's that Democrats are nuts. They're indicting Trump. Who wants to be involved with that? One possible factor, though, is that Cotham recently skipped a vote to override Cooper's veto of Republican-sponsored legislation relaxing some gun laws, handing Republicans the votes they needed to usher the bill into law. That set into motion a cascade of blowback against Cotham, driven by Democrats criticizing her for not showing. Rep. Cecile Brockman, who was also a moderate Democrat, told the News and Observer he doesn't blame Cotham and said he thought the reaction from Democrats drove her to switch parties. I think she just wanted to do what's best for her district. And when you're constantly talked about and trashed, especially the way we have been over the past few weeks, I think this is what happens, Brockham said. Democratic House Minority Leader Rep. Robert Reeves called for Cotham to resign in a press release Tuesday afternoon. Oh boy. Maybe this is it. Maybe we will see more and more individuals abandon the Democrats as they continually lose their minds. So what happens? They're trying to basically ban guns across the country. They're insane. That's it. I don't care what you think about them. I don't care what Ian says on Timcast IRL. He's like, we got to bring people together. Dude, we had Stephen Marsh on the show. He is a multicultural, democratic, liberal leftist, I guess you'd call it. He blames the right for a lot of the Civil War stuff, but he does think a civil war is coming. And I asked him a simple question. Would you be willing to compromise to avert crisis? And he's like, yes, of course. I said, okay. So would you be willing to give up, in, say, Canada, universal health care if it meant we stop fighting? And he said, no, absolutely not. And I said, you see, well, we're at an impasse. And he understands. He is unwilling to give up Canada's healthcare plan if it means ending the conflict. That is to say, you and I both know there will never be a time where you or I agree children should get sex changes for any reason. They come to the table and they say, we want to avoid a civil war. Here's our proposal. We will agree with some of the voting law changes if you accept children getting sex changes. Not a single conservative would agree to that. They'd say no. And they would be like, well, I mean, we have to negotiate, right? We have to compromise to avoid war. No, they're not going to do it. It will never happen. So this is what we're seeing. Perhaps what will happen is, as the news spreads, and I think it is, and people like Bill Maher start to wake up to what these Democrats are doing, you may actually get someone like Bill Maher in 2024 say he's voting Republican. Now, here's an interesting point. I like Trump more than DeSantis for president, but there is something to be said about this. Bill Maher, in my opinion, would consider voting for Ron DeSantis. Maybe not right now. Maybe you don't believe it, but he would never vote Trump. He wouldn't vote Trump because of his ego and because of his Trump derangement syndrome. But I do believe many viewers of Real Time with Bill Maher would likely consider voting for Ron DeSantis, which brings up the question of electability. Now, Donald Trump, I think, if an election were held today, would probably win because the economy is so awful. However, the media going after him like crazy, Ron DeSantis is a clean slate. Now, I don't think Ron DeSantis gets in there and does what needs to be done. I don't think he fires everybody. I think he just plays the game. You know, we'll get some victories. The question is this. Is it better to win with Ron DeSantis, a small victory, or lose with Donald Trump going for the harder pitch? I'm not going to tell you, who you should vote for, whatever. We'll see who wins the primary. Right now, I favor Donald Trump because of his tenacity. I do not believe Ron DeSantis has that same degree. And I don't believe Ron DeSantis will go in and fire the people who need to be fired. That being said, I've talked to regular people and they've lost it. I'm wondering if a Ron DeSantis victory can get us over that line to start to solve the problems and be that snowball rolling down a hill that Donald Trump could not be. Donald Trump is the bull slamming through the doors. Ron DeSantis is the start of a snowball rolling down a hill. Therein lies the deep challenge. A North Carolina Democrat probably will switch parties, but would they actively support Donald Trump? Probably not, because they're moderates. They know that the people in their district will likely vote for someone like them, whether they're Democrat or Republican or not, but not if they're on board with Donald Trump. So I don't know for sure. This person, this Democrat, may be betting on picking up new voters who are Trump supporters who are going to say, you made the right move switching parties, and thus we will now vote for you. Or maybe they're just saying, I can't do this anymore. The Democrats have lost their minds. They're in favor of abortion with no limits. They're sterilizing and castrating children. Something needs to be done. Maybe it's not all about ballot harvesting. I think it's mostly. Maybe a large component is we need to be lobbying moderate Democrats to quit the Democratic Party. We need to create a path for these Democrats to safely say, my future lies with someone else. then marginalize the Democrats to the point where they don't matter politically. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6:30 on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.